that she does. I really appreciate her.
We are live.
Did like how she operated.
She's been doing business.
Articles and stuff. We just got
Ready, Jen?
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little.
Here.
Commissioner Alguier.
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Any public comment at this time? Just Mike.
Board, thanks. Thanks for the time, Ty. My name is Mike McMillan. I'm a resident of Northport on Gills Pier Road. For feedback, I guess. You sit further back or closer?
I think it should be okay now.
Okay. You know, the first to have end-to-end fiber in the Leelanau County. I'm an advocate for everybody to have what I have, what my neighbors have. And so that's why I'm here today to address the board before you guys vote on the broadband, excuse me, the points broadband contract. There's a couple questions I had prior to that, though, is if you can't respond today, at some time you could respond. The $40,000 that was approved without an RFP process for the broadband study, where was that funded out of? I know at that point it was anticipated to come out of the ARP money, but that would be a question that we would have. Also, the $120,000 consulting fee approved in January, again, without an RFP process. Where is that being funded out of with regards to the broadband implementation? And in respects to the points contract, I'm here to ask the board to delay the vote for a couple reasons, to accommodate a 60-day RFP process. To me, to spend $5 million without an RFP is beyond explanation to anybody. I mean, I don't spend $500 without getting a second bid on anything I do around the house, let alone spend $5 million. And also along with that, to use a 60-day, I'm saying a 60-day RFP process, to use that 60 days to explain to the public how you intend to pay the $1.8 million gap, because you're only using $3.2 million out of the ARP money to fund the $5 million contract. What hasn't been explained is where you're going to get the $1.8 million. So again, in this environment, it's a very, very competitive environment in the fiber industry. A lot of private capital money coming in. There's a lot of people that would like to look at that contract and have a chance to bid on it. And if Points wins it, that is great. But I do think from a public service standpoint, you need to take a look to see if we got the best deal possible. And without an RFP process, we'll never know that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask the gentleman a question? Is he in this business?
You may ask what you like.
Are you in this business, sir?
I'm not in the business, but I've probably been a student the last 2 years in order to get it for my my roads, so I pretty much know every acronym that I didn't know 2 years ago. So I have enough walking knowledge to be, but not in the business.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? We will get the answers to your question. to you, Mr. Allen. At this time, any commissioner comments? Commissioner?
Well, my only comment is to address a little bit of Mr. McDonald's question. And I should say that Mike was a member, a late joining member of LIFT who dropped out fairly recently and is in disagreement with the balance of the LIFT team in terms of approaches and that.
I didn't drop out. For the record,
Please.
I didn't drop out.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Excuse me. Anyway, I should add, and I think all of you know, that having Tom Stevenson on the LIFT committee, he had been an active individual, and Tom did do amazing due diligence talking with all of the major internet service providers that had the capability to take on a project of this nature in Leelanau County before he was recommending the full project. So I think that that's just something we need to keep in our minds, that even though we didn't do an RFP, basically, Tom Stevenson, who is the Connect Nation representative for our county and, or excuse me, for our state, for Texas as well, did do a lot of due diligence, talking with many ISPs earlier in the process. So just thought I would add that. And I thank you, Mike, for being here. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Commissioner Rushton.
I guess my question is, if we have one citizen in the county that has a concern because an RFP process was not completed, then maybe there are other people who have concerns about spending $5 million without the RFP process.
Any other commissioner comment? Okay, at this time, we go to the, well, I have been asked to remind everybody to talk into the microphone by the clerk's office. At this time, the purpose of our meeting, we have 3 items on the agenda, and we'll start with the public hearing request for the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Trudy.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Do we have to approve this agenda prior?
We do not, because
Okay.
it's a special meeting.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My request for you today is on behalf of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and Habitat for Humanity, who's working on a brownfield plan. We are required by law to have a public hearing hosted by the county board. So I'm asking if you would set that on June 21st. It could be done during your regular meeting or prior to your regular meeting. So that's what I'm asking for. And if you set it on June 21st, that allows us to meet the public notice posting requirements. It could be later than June 21st as well. That's the date we're asking for them.
Would 6:30 p.m. work?
Yes, that would be great.
Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, I would make a motion that we hold a public hearing at 6:30 p.m. on June 21st. The purpose of the Brownfield Development Authority. Support.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Will we post the property or what this is about for people? to-
Yes, I actually have the draft public hearing notice ready. I'll be calling the enterprise as soon as I leave here to give them the time. It'll be posted everywhere. And at your executive committee meeting on June 14th, there'll be a presentation on the brownfield plan. So we'll walk through it with everyone.
Okay.
And then the public hearing would be on the 21st.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in support of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
We now go to the Points Broadband proposed contract. Mr. Jess, you?
Yeah, and I believe Chris is online. Chris?
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Several months ago, one more time, you authorized me to negotiate a contract with Points Communication through our legal counsel. That was a lengthy process, and Chris was very valuable member of that negotiation team. And I believe we have a contract that meets our standards and has been drafted by our legal counsel. And this is the same contract I passed out to you several weeks ago with the attachments just being added on. So Chris, you want to walk us through the process here? And answer any questions that people have?
Well, I'm hoping everyone's had a chance to review it. It's been in the works for a while. And I don't really have a lot to cover other than the schedule of values, which was finally added yesterday. And it's broken up into basically 16 areas based on the cabinets that they're going to build to service the areas. It's based on their design. And they're going to, the plan is to start from the government center and work their way north initially this year to pick up the most unserved areas that were mapped out. And then at some point, I'm not entirely sure if they're going to start to do things parallel, but they'll start to head south as well. The payments are based on completing and activating those areas by cabinet to request the payments based on that schedule that you have in front of you. And it's also based on a prorated schedule so that it's pretty much the number of unserved homes that determine what the amount of the payment is. I think it's a very good schedule. I think it's a very good breakdown. It's easy for I think the county to handle, and it's going to be spread across 2 years. So you can look at the schedule. I don't have an exact timeline yet, but we do have very emphatic agreement with Point Broadband in that they're happy with it. We're happy with it, and I think we're ready to move forward with them. So I would.
Before you continue, Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, thank you. Well, you went right to the heart of where my questions were, Chris, so thank you for that. And first thing I was going to ask for was the schedule, and I see you did just provide that. So this schedule, the cabinet schedule is how we will pay. So we won't be paying until that work is done and that bill is submitted. That's what I had read in the contract, that they'll do the work, submit the bill, and I believe you're going to be the person that will check off all the boxes for us and authorize then that payment or sign off on it technically.
That is correct.
Okay, all right, and so we won't pay, and once that work is done, then we'll be paying as we go per cabinet. So I like that a lot better. I had envisioned something, maybe 20% of the work got done, and we pay 20% of the work, but this is good, because I think that we'll be able to follow process a little bit faster or better. And then the other question I had was in, go ahead and go. It'll come back to me. I had one more question in the contract, but you may cover it also as we go.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think the method that we're using is it protects the county, especially because they don't get paid until the actual subscribers can sign up for the service or the actual homeowners. So it's based entirely on them getting the work done and being able to activate it and connect people before they can request the payment. And then we will be definitely going through and validating that those areas are complete, which will authorize them to submit for the payment.
May I ask, Manager? Okay. In the contract, it says that you'll be providing us with like all the permits or anything required. My question is then, who in the county will be taking care of that? Who will keep our files on that?
Well, yeah, I'll be working with Chris through this
Okay.
process. But this is kind of like the same process as we did the roofing job or the HVAC. Nothing gets paid, nothing gets authorized until it's approved by our owner's rep, which Chris is serving in that capacity. So therefore, we have a check and balance in place, because none of us have the expertise to look at those details and say, okay, this was done properly, this was not done properly.
Okay.
And as I said, I think the key was, this took us a lengthy time to get the contract. It's a unique contract. Our law firm said it's a unique partnership, but we have worked with the representatives from Points on this contract. And I believe they're in agreement with it, Chris, as far as I can tell.
Yes.
And based on my discussion with Bob. So we did go back and forth. That's why it took a while to get this, but I feel very confident this fulfills the terms that the board was wishing to do when we entered this potential agreement with Points.
Would you review the funding for me? The 3.2 funding is the ARPA funds that we've already designated, but the 1.8.
The county has not made that decision. We have hired a consultant to work with us on that. Odds are very good that there'll be other our funding, but there's no guarantee, but there's no specific plans on a 1.8 at this point.
So do we have enough money? If the county has to come up with that 1.8?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. We had a board update here a couple of months ago. on
Okay,
that.
I'm just.
When Mr. Gallup came
Want
in.
another
Jim,
record,
yeah.
yeah.
But I'm very optimistic. Everyone I do talk to, from our state reps or senator to the governor's office, says there'll be funding. And we are, as you know, we hired a consultant to help us get that money, either through public or private sources. And I know he's working on it as we speak.
I like to know what the bottom line is. If the county has got the money and you say we do.
The worst case scenario is yes.
Okay.
Does anybody know if that consultant has been able to raise any money yet?
He's in the starting process of doing it.
Anything else, Chris, you wanna, before we open up to some more further questions?
No, I think it's fairly straightforward. You said we've had a lot of people looking at it, and Point Broadband has, they've offered their comments, and we worked through them, and I think they're as ready as we are to see this move forward. They will just a brief about the timeline. They're going to initially finish the engineering. They think that's going to take probably up to 60 days. The permitting, most of it is being done for the road commission wherever they need to bury and work in the, require a permit to work in the right of ways. We've gotten word that that's going to be supported by the county road commission. I mean, pole attachment permits are going to be through Cherryland and possibly a little bit through Consumers Energy. I had a conversation with Consumers Energy, and they're looking forward to supporting this in areas where they might be attaching to their poles. So the wheels are ready to start turning. We just need to go ahead to start building it.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Well, I'd like to say that I'm very appreciative of the work you've done, Chris, and the updates and the work with Cherryland and Consumers and the tribe and all of the players in the Point and with Chet's office. So thank you very much.
I'd like to say thank you to Chris too. I have people in District 6 who are writing and calling and saying, help, or are they gonna hit me and when and why and how? So thank you for your forbearance.
Well, the work is really just getting started, so we got a ways to go, but it's definitely going forward, and it's been very good up till now. I'm pleased with it.
And I'm referring to the RDOF people, so.
Commissioner Lutner?
And how realistic is 2 years? If they can get going ASAP?
I think it's very realistic. They have the materials, they have the personnel that they need, they have the resources. We just got to get it underway to be able to meet that. Barring a really, really bad winter, they're going to be ready to hit the ground running as soon as the weather breaks in the spring of 2023 to get it all finished up. So I think they'll have a big head start, and it's a reasonable timeline talking with them and knowing what I know about others in the state. So yeah, I think it's a good timeline, and I think we can meet it.
What happens if we run into supply chain issues?
Most of the materials have already been procured by Point Broadband. And once they get, I believe, once they get this into their queue, they'll begin to start to backfill their supply chain with future orders. And so we don't see that as a big problem for this project. It is definitely a concern in the industry right now. If we were having to order the materials today, that would be a problem. But we've been assured that they have the materials already in stock that they're going to be able to use to build this.
And did we address, I don't know if the company that's putting this together, if they're borrowing the funds to do this? And if they are, have they secured the funds?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure how they're set with the funding. I know they're, I would have to defer that to them. And in fact, I think they're listening in and I can get you an answer on that. If you give me just a couple of minutes.
Well, I think the key point is they don't get paid until the work is done. So if they don't have the funding, they want to get the work done, they won't get paid for this.
Well, in the interest of the county, if we're gonna move ahead with this, the customers want the service. So if we're going to engage in something this large, we should be aware of if the funding is available to that company and what other hiccups there might be so that we're not disappointed.
Normally when under contracts, we only ask companies to provide their financing. It's their responsibility. We've never done that in the past for companies.
Well, the question is do they have the financing?
I don't know if that's our issue, because they don't get paid unless they get the work done.
Commissioner Sutherland?
If I may finish,
Okay, I've just gotten a text from David Ficken, Vice President, saying that no borrowing is required by them. They are all set.
perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Sutherland?
No, I can do this.
Do I have a motion or any other questions?
I will make a motion.
Yes.
I move that the county board of commissioners approve the agreement between Leelanau County and Point Broadband Fiber Holding LLC for the construction of the broadband fiber optic network as presented, pending council review and approval.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I just want to add my thanks to this because I know what an incredible undertaking bringing this to this point in time has been, and you have done incredible work, Chris. Thank you so very much for your diligence and for your hard work.
Commissioner Gardner?
Yes, it spoke of, the contract mentioned a map. It seems like I said it was a map on page 8 or something, and we didn't have a map. So is there a map that coordinates with the schedule if a person wants to, or the cabinet? Is there a?
Yeah. Yes, there is. It's not quite ready to present to the public, but there is a map that shows the areas that identify where those cabinet locations are.
And that will be on the web when we get it all set.
Yeah.
That'll be available for people to see. Thank you.
That'll be the basis for what we put on the website along with the address list. I don't know if you noticed, but you've got an address list that's 160 pages long of all of the unserved homes only that will be part of this project. So everybody will be able to look up their own address and determine that they're on this list, ready to go.
Thank you. Commissioner Rushton?
Yes, I just want to clarify my question as far as secured funds. That may not be our business in one regard. However, the reason for the question was if we had a company that did not have funding in place, then it would allow us the opportunity to look at a different company that might be better positioned financially to get the project done. That was the reason for my question.
Thank you. Other questions, concerns? Are we ready to vote?
Well, we just got the,
Yes.
well, we just got the address list for the 160 pages, as you said, it just dropped and just wanted to look at it. Is this every address? So if you see a multiple name on a piece of property, is that potential drops for potential future development?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I recognize some names that have multiple houses. That makes sense to me, but I just saw another name that has, their name is on there multiple times, but I don't think they have multiple houses, but they have large acreage. So is that like, are there potential drops being put in for future? What that might be, or?
There is capacity in the system for future homes and future developments, yes.
That makes sense to me then. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Would the clerk read the motion again, please?
I have a motion by Sotis Little to move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the agreement between Leelanau County and Point Broadband Fiber Holding, LLC, for the construction of a broadband fiber optic network, as presented, pending council review and approval, seconded by Robbins.
Last time, any questions or comments? All those in support say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
I can tell you 2 weeks ago at my administrators conference, I ended up giving them many presentation on this partnership because many counties are looking at us and because of the publicity that we've had. They're asking how we pull this off because they're at the beginning stages trying to do what we did, and they're at the point where they're looking at forming committees to look at what they can do in their county. So they were very interested in the press that we got and how we did it and how we were able to work this out so quickly.
And some of the credit goes to you, Chris. So again, thank you very much.
you're all very welcome.
I just want to also add our thanks to Point Broadband. It's an excellent company. We're just so privileged to have this partnership with them. I'm excited and looking forward to the completion of the project.
It's a day to celebrate.
They are online listening, so they can hear you, Patricia.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the non-union pay scale options. Chet, you have some.
Yeah, and I've asked Darcy to come and join me here for this discussion. There's kind of an old joke I heard in one of my meetings a couple of years ago. There's only certain things in life that are certain, and that's death, taxes, and the request for paid classification studies. Because no matter where you do, everyone wants to do that. I can tell you it was an issue when I first came here, my first year. I guess the county last time did it in the late 90s. That time it did a complete study, as I understand, but it was not acted upon. My experiences with them has been kind of the same over the various places I've worked with. It's in theory, it sounds great. But then when reports come out, you never have support. And of course, no one ever thinks they should get a pay cut. And so it's been a challenge here. We kind of started this process. Well, there's been requests off and on for a number of years. I think last year in the budget process, we looked at it's probably time to look at the non-union pay scale because there were some, I think, some legitimate issues with it. We said we'd do it after the budget process, so we finished the budget. We started looking in January. Jen Grant was pushing the most about her chief deputy. Then some other issues came in with our chief deputies and our elected officials that we resolved last month. And then as a finance committee, we looked at various options. And then once we started doing this, a couple of people said, well, let's just look at a certain group of employees. Let's look at the whole thing. Let's look at bringing in a consultant. And I don't know how you can look at certain individuals without the other ones. Just since we started it, I've had requests from almost everybody wanting to look at their department. So what I'm talking about is just the non-union pay scale. Quite a few counties, because I think of our economic situation, are looking at this process now or have in the last couple of years. Most counties like us are struggling to find employees. We have several vacancies now. As you know, we had some job posted for a couple of months now. We just haven't had applicants. So I think all of you agree that we need to look at this and see how to go forward. So I've been thinking about this. I'm only going to be here for 6 months. It's going to take several months to go through this if you wish to do this properly. If you're going to bring a consultant in, and you're going to have at least 2 new board members, you're going to have at least 3 with less than 1 year experience. So it's going to be a tough task. What I hate to do is start the process, have a report back in October, November, and you make one decision and another board comes in and wants to make another decision, because that just would be the worst for everyone. And then Darcy's had some dialogue with other counties that have done this and some advice. But I think would be fair, maybe, is that you basically authorized Darcy and I to go out with an RFP to see what the cost would be and what the options are. You know, I honestly don't know what the cost would be. They vary. It's been a while since I've done them. They vary depending how deep of study you want, whether you want all employees or just non-union employees on it, whether you want elected officials included or not. And so different companies can do it differently, and they can provide proposals, and they can give us numerous proposals for us to look at. But realistically, I started looking, this is already June 7th, Gwen's birthday today. If you didn't hear that, if you came late, it's Gwen's birthday. So when you look at it, and so what Darcy and I talked about, and Darcy gave me more details, if you authorize today to go out for an RFP for wage consultants to look at this, we can probably get an RFP done with help of legal counsel first part of July. Mid to late August, companies could respond back to it. The board could pick a consultant in September, do the work in the fall, and have the report ready for review January 1st. So that way there'd be a new board coming in and a new administrator. You hate to put this burden on a brand new board, and because your views may be completely different than another board, and my views may be different than the next administrator. But I think we do need to start the process. I don't know how we do it internally. We could just look at salaries from the counties, and we've done that in the past, but I'll use Trudy as an example. If you look at planning departments, if you just look at planning departments and what they do, yeah, we could get salary ranges, but Trudy also does solid waste council, she does land bank, she does brownfield, she does now Remon. So once again, you can't just look at titles and look at duties, you've got to dig in to do it. If you're going to do that, you really need a neutral third party, because what's the quote you were told from Grand Traverse County? I thought this was a great
It
It
quote here.
was, if you are not interested in increasing wages, the worst thing to do, other than doing a wage study, is doing one and then doing nothing.
Because the results get published, everyone sees it, and then the board chooses not to act on it. You want to go on what you found out? Because I've asked Darcy to kind of research this and look at options.
I've been talking to a few different counties to get an idea of what they've done. Some of them have discussed doing wage studies and then stopped there because they don't want to go through the process. I've got a couple of ideas of what it costs for a few other counties who have and are in the process. And their feedback is it's a rough thing, and be prepared. And if you're not serious about it, it's better not to do it.
Rough in what way?
For example, so you come back and you do this wage study and then you don't act on that.
So that's.
But the study gets published, then you have employees who look at you and say, well, now you know that I'm worth this, but you're not recognizing that.
On the other hand, we can, I'm sorry.
I think the other issue here is we need to take a real hard look at what's going on in our economy. Our first quarter growth was at 1.5% growth, and we have a declining economy at this point. So if we don't look at everything as a whole,
I think we're gonna find that we're gonna make the wrong moves.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. And that's why I suggest to do the first step, to do an RFP does not cost us anything. This way companies can respond back to us, tell us what the options are and what the costs are, because I can't tell you what it's gonna be, $10,000 or $50,000. I know Grand Traverse County, last one did it was how much?
I'm not exactly.
I think
sure.
$90,000, but there's a much bigger thing. But at least let's start the process, because internally, this is a big issue. Because you made changes on some positions, and other people are saying now, okay, when's my turn to have my department looked at? Once you start the process, it's difficult to stop and say, okay, we're only gonna do these when we're not doing these.
Right.
And I don't know how you can do it internally and have a fair assessment.
So Gwen and then Patricia and then Melinda.
Well, what you're talking about makes sense, and it's really a long-term project. If we don't do RFPs and do a wage study, then we have to look at these ourselves. Because there are some huge inequities here. We could correct those while we decide whether we're gonna do a wage study on the entire process. But I think it's important to correct the inequities that exist right now, no matter what we do. So I think we have two issues. One is correcting what's obviously out of whack. And then the question about, are we gonna look at all of them? And I think we can do both.
I think, Chet, what you're suggesting is the best way to go, to do an RFP and leave the ultimate decision to the new board, because as you pointed out, there could be different feelings, different opinions as to which way to go, new administrator. This all makes sense to me. I think Commissioner Rushton's comment about the economy is a good one. I also know that right now we've had the strongest job market we've had, with the highest number of jobs created and held than we've seen in a very long time. But we were talking yesterday that Networks Northwest, part of the problem is recruitment and retainment. Retainment is right now going into this market going to be one of the most important things we can do. And in order to retain people, you have to value them. I think it's, while I appreciate what Commissioner Allgaier is saying about fixing the problems now, unfortunately, if you start fixing this one, then you've got that one.
Yeah.
And it's looking at it as an entire makes more sense to me in terms of how you're going to get equitable results for everybody. So if I may, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to authorize our administrator and our human resources director to work together to do an RFP to payment classification consultants so that we can look at starting the process. Does that cover everything that you need?
Yeah, basically, we're just asking for permission to go out for RFP, to develop an RFP.
Permission to go out for RFP to develop a payment classification study.
Support.
I can tell you from experience, you don't want to nitpick and pick one. Like you said, I mean, there's legitimate reasons to fix some, but that's so subjective. So you fix one, someone will say, well, how come I wasn't? No matter how you do it, I've been through it. I can tell you, it sounds great on paper. It's one of the things that sounds great until you get into the details. No matter how you do it, you're going to have people that are perceived as winners and losers. And I can tell you now, from the last conference calls I was on with Mr. A lot of companies are looking at this for the same reason we're looking at. They're struggling to get employees, labor, salaries. They're now competing with numerous employers in the public and private sector, and everyone's kind of struggling. So there's a lot of people looking at this. For those of us who have gone through it before, we warn the new administrators that it's not going to be an easy task, and it's going to be very hard for the board. The last time this happened here, the board chose not to act on it. A couple of years ago, Grand Traverse County, maybe 5, 6 years ago, did a very in-depth study for over a year, and the board never even looked at it because it was so controversial, no matter how you do it. The one they did just last year,
Yes.
they didn't really implement it. They just gave across the board increases to everyone, and they even have some lawsuits now over that, so no matter how you do it. And as you know, just even what we did here with the elected officials, that's caused quite a bit of controversy. So no matter how you do it, you're gonna have controversy. There's no easy way. It's one of the things, it's like recycling. Everyone wants recycling, doesn't want it in their backyard. Everyone wants affordable housing, just not next to me. It's got those things that sounds great on paper, but it's not an easy task to, toughest part is implementing it. And
Well, in looking at this, it was just pointed out to me the other day, and I hadn't really paid much attention to it, but we have one name on our list, and this is an enormously huge mistake. So you can see all these other positions are just positions, so no matter who holds those, but we've got one name on there, and no step increases, just boom, $72,000. And I guess it's because it is that one person, and that's the kind of thing Chet's talking about. That employees do not like this sort of thing, and I don't know how to change this, because I expect if this prosecutor moves on or moves up, are we gonna pay the next person that's third in line those dollars? Or whoever is here, are they gonna pay them that $? Or is that why the name is attached?
the name's attached because that's the way you made the motion last summer to
Not
tie
I,
it directly to
to
the
be clear.
individual, not to the person.
Not I, to be clear.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, the board.
just see that, that's a real problem to me, and I don't wanna see more of that, because that just creates.
Yes, I would like to talk a little bit about the job positions, okay? Specifically, our planning director. Are other planning directors in other counties tasked with the same things our planning director is tasked with?
No, it's across the board.
Okay, so when we look at a position and define the position, what the job duties are, there should be an allocated dollar amount to that,
Yeah.
that work. When you have a department that is doing multiple or being in charge of multiple departments, we need to look at that in a different way. So I would like to see us maybe break that out a little bit.
You bring a very valid point. I think a consultant would do that. My experience have been, when I've done these or been associated with these, they do look at specific duties and functions and the values, and they have a point system assign them. And they do, most consultants who do this, I would think we want someone that's experienced at the county level that would do that and do that. But most of them, I think, would do exactly what you're suggesting.
Because I think it's the objective of this board to pay our employees for the position and the work that they do
Yeah.
do.
Exactly.
And provide the benefits and all of the package. I think Patricia brought up a good point. We want to retain all of our employees, our great employees here. So we want to keep what we have, but we have to somehow make it fair that everybody is being compensated and others are not being overworked and undercompensated. So.
And that's why I think most boards and most, whether it's a school district or township or city, want an impartial third party to come and look at it, because it's hard for internal people to do it. You just can't do it. No matter how you do it, you're gonna be accused of playing
But
favorites.
my question is do we have these, are all these jobs broken out, what is required for each position?
We have job descriptions now that are pretty updated. Because remember, many of our job descriptions were 20 years old.
Right, but
We
how
did update
detailed
them.
are they?
Well, it's probably as detailed as any other county. I mean, there's a couple of pages for each position. If you look at, since we're talking about planning, those duties of truties are included in there. I'm not sure if Remon is, because that's fairly new, that's been added. But as you remember, we went through every job description
Yes.
a couple of years ago and updated them the best that we could. So obviously they changed, but they're pretty accurate.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. We now are at the part in our agenda that we invite.
Oh, can I just give one update in our webpage? Because I'm as frustrated as all of you. And I had a kind of a, I'll call it come to Jesus meeting today with Leo, which is our land information access. They control our webpage. So I'm not a tech person, but for 3 weeks, I've been told they're working on it. Our web page is served by Leah. It's not hosted by us. It's not part of our safety nets contract. They're the ones that host it. I think it's time we look at a new webpage anyways, because ours is 10 years old. But for 3 weeks, I keep telling them they're gonna work on it, they're gonna work on it. There has been some attacks everywhere against units of government that's happening here, but we have made no changes internally in our server, in our firewalls, anything. It truly is a Leo problem. And I was pretty blunt with the gentleman today that it's gotta be fixed now. I don't care what your problems is, fix it. We need to resolve it quickly. And that was at 11:55 a.m. today, because I'm just as frustrated as all of you. It should not be happening. We double checked every system we had. I had Leelanau check. I had Safety Net last week, checked all their servers, all our firewalls, everything. We're not blocking anything. Something, yes, we have been attacked. They have not been successful, but a lot of units of government are being attacked from everywhere. But something is blocking it. And they need to figure out sooner versus later why this is causing a problem.
Maybe we could put that on the agenda for the.
That'd be good, yes.
meeting and have discussion. Thank you.
I couldn't have been more blunt with the gentleman this morning, so
Thank you for doing
I
it.
think Leanna was kind of when I started speaking, but I mean, I've been patient with them and we truly have been trying to do everything that we can. I don't know how it all works, but it seems between Safe and Leanna, they're telling us we have done everything we can and we have not made any changes in the last month that would cause it from our side. It has to be on their server and they're the one that controls it.
Thank you. At this point, we're at public comment again. Any public comment? Any commissioner comment?
I want to thank the LIFT committee for some yeoman work. And our members, Patricia and Ty, and then Melinda joined in. This is a huge move forward for our county, so congratulations.
Any other comments?
Yes, what is correct. It was a partner effort, and if Linda hadn't jumped in, we wouldn't have had to finish. So really, thanks, Ty, thanks, Linda, and to everybody.
And it helped that Cherryland was supportive and.
Excited about it. Yep.
So thank you. And thank you, Darcy, for your recommendation. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay.